The latest Epstein Files have hit the world harder than the meteor that killed the dinosaurs. Careers and reputations are biting the dust left and right, from palaces to boardrooms. But the place with the highest concentration of Epstein mentions was the White House. And there was something buried so deep in these files that the geniuses over at the DOJ seem to have completely missed it. An encoded diary from a 16-year-old girl with info on Trump and many others that is so vile and horrible, it's a miracle that it somehow was released without a big black box over the whole damn thing. And that's probably because they don't plan on actually doing anything about this at all. Folks, this story is being severely underreported, partially because it's seemingly so confusing. But don't worry, I spent some time over the weekend and pieced this all together for you. So make sure that you're subscribed to Really American for the stories that you are not going to see on the mainstream media. Let's get into it. On Friday of last week, the DOJ dropped some 3 million more Epstein files at the same time that they arrested Don Lemon to sort of take up the media cycle. Now, most of the stories that you may have heard by now likely cover the emails between Epstein and people like Elon Musk, who was practically begging to be let onto PDF File Island. Or you may have seen unverified tips that the FBI fielded, which have some of the most salacious allegations, but may also be completely false. But one of the strangest and most illuminating files in this new dataset 12 was this: a personal diary from a 16-year-old girl that was scanned by the FBI as evidence. You can see that this girl created this journal artistically, using clippings from magazines to finish her sentences while writing around images to sort of illustrate what she's talking about. These sentences seem to be written in another language or like some sort of code. And really, the words are written up, down, left to right. So this first part here, if you can see, says THANKGOD, so thank God. It's sort of confusing to read, but thankfully, shout out to Ken Kirkland IV on Twitter, who translated this particular page for us. This one page I wanted to start with because it has some names that you may recognize as verified sickos. It starts with a girl running in a Harvard sweatshirt, a New York stamp, and a ballerina, and it says, "Thank God my parents picked me up. For being a Rockefeller, that plane Mr. Dana had me on was scary. Both he and Larry Summers are fucking disgusting. Hope no relation to Tracy." Which is, yeah, me too. Clearly she's referring to Larry Summers, who we now know was deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein. She has a clipping here that says, "What a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old girl she was, ... great fun and bouncy." Yikes. Another clipping here reads, "Charles, 32, courts his teen queen." Clearly this is talking about Diana. The girl writes, "I guess it's a royal thing. Gross. Andrew is like his brother in this way. Blank, which is clearly a name that's been redacted, should not brag because that was yucky." I guess another one of these girls was bragging about being with royalty, and she's correctly identifying that this is disgusting. So now we have two references to Larry Summers and Andrew, Prince Andrew, who we know to be sickos, involved deeply with Epstein and themselves like PDF files, right? Now check out this last section. Like the others, this is starting from a clipping that says, "Ivana Trump, entrepreneur, she once asked me how I handled the press during my divorce. She said, 'You come out of your divorce with dignity and pride. That's how I would like to come out of mine.'" The girl, the 16-year-old girl, remember, says this: "Does this lady," talking about Ivana, "know that you can't have any dignity if you've been with him? ? I know I have none. Only Skittles." So this girl is saying to Ivana Trump that she doesn't have any dignity after being with her husband, Donald. The girl knows because she has none herself. Only Skittles? I mean, this just makes my skin crawl and the hair stand up on end. I mean, I think the only reason that this wasn't redacted is because Ivana's name here is not typed out, right? It's part of a clipping, so it wouldn't register in a word search. It doesn't come up when you search Trump in the Epstein files. Also, the girl in her text doesn't ever say Trump's name. So this looks like it was truly something that we were never supposed to see. They just completely forgot to redact this. And the Skittles comment? Well, we know that Trump has a sweet tooth. We know he loves candy, calls it his poison. I mean, the idea that this vile old man gave this poor girl Skittles after doing whatever he did to her. Ugh, I have literally been shaking since starting this story this weekend. It is just insane. But somehow, it gets even crazier, believe me. To further build the credibility of this girl's accusations, I want to point out some other information that she gives in this personal diary. Again, this is like encoded. It's private. It's an artistic work of self-expression. It's not something that she ever intended for anyone to see. So I think this statement is very, very telling. Actually, every statement in here is very telling. This one I had to translate myself. It says, not being able to tell you what Miss Vicky does and what really happens in Florida and California. I hope you don't ever meet Fat Pig Weinstein or the rest. This message is right next to a note that she pasted into her journal. And that note is dated July 20th, 2000 and something. It gets cut off here, but clearly it's before 2010. Likely 2004, because there are some other dates in this journal that give that year. Now, Harvey Weinstein was not publicly known to be a gross fat pig until 2017, let alone Larry Summers and Prince Andrew. This teenage girl had information about all of these men back in 2004, along with Trump, who she said she was with herself. Again, a 16-year-old girl. Now, this is where it gets even darker. Okay, so I'm going to give y'all a trigger warning. There won't be anything graphic shown or described, but we will be discussing forced pregnancy and violence. So just understand that what happens to this poor girl is beyond comprehension. And to understand it best, I think you should hear from her own words. So here are just some select snippets of her journal. It starts with, "There's a reason that my mom lied about Mr. Glickman all the time. She lied about work trips, about Michigan, and about Clearwater. Now he is dead and I'm being sent to live with her friend, ? Back and forth? For how long?" She continues, "Went to a party at this huge house to meet this man named Mr. Robert and his pretty wife Jill. The same exact British lady from Clearwater was there. She talked to me all night. She wants me to come to her house in Florida so I can learn new things. To get away from Mary? ? Can she help?" This British lady turns out to be Ghislaine Maxwell. This girl was introduced to her along with Joseph and Jill Robert here, another set of billionaire sickos in their own right. And then she was invited to Florida, likely to Mar-a-Lago or to Epstein's Pink Mansion, in order to learn new things. Disgusting. She's also clearly trying to get away from someone or someplace called Mary or Mary's. That name comes up a lot in her journal, so that just goes to show that they select girls that come from broken homes. Once she arrives in Florida, things quickly take a twisted turn. Jeffrey takes an interest in her because he sees her as a special girl compared to the others. And in her journal, she remarks about how strange he seems to be towards her. She writes, "Broken promises. I don't understand why she, Ghislaine, is treating me on some days like I'm the enemy, but then we lay in bed together and she is how she used to be, warm. He, Jeffrey, makes her feel my tummy. And it's so sad and confusing. Superior gene pool? Why me? It makes no sense. Why my hair color and eye color? That feels very Nazi-like, but I'm thinking about these stupid, insane theories he has, I guess. In his mind, it makes sense. The piano and music comments are made to convince me that this is right and will create perfect offspring, he says. I don't think it works that way, and it's making me hate playing altogether. Piano or viola, I am starting to resent them both. I miss the person I was before I was made into what feels like a human incubator. Yeah, you read that right, human incubator. Now listen, if what I just read you made you feel sick, then what I'm about to read you is going to make you vomit. The implication of it is just beyond words. She continues later in the journal, tomorrow is the halfway ultrasound for Jeffrey. This one stuck. After they took the first baby who survived and the early miscarriage, I think it was called, I no longer feel like a person, but a vessel. Will they take this one too? Who was the first one? Where did Ghislaine go? She is never around. I can't let myself get attached. I am not old or mature enough to... God, Jesus, so heartbreaking. Or even in the place to have a baby that I should be responsible for. I am not even able to focus on anything other than hiding this again. I had to go on an eating disorder treatment prior to being in this situation again and missed the entire fall semester of school. I am so very exhausted. My body feels so tired. Will I ever be free? This one stuck. This one? Early miscarriage, first baby? Listen, there's more in this journal about Ghislaine and Jeffrey and what they did to her, and it's as bad as you think. She seems to have had multiple pregnancies and at least one birth that was taken away from her shortly after she, delivered. All because Epstein is obsessed with her perfect superior genes, which she said herself is Nazi shit. The overlap of Nazis and PDF files is a complete fucking circle. Now, despite being his genetically superior special girl, Epstein was still handing her off to his billionaire clients. This specific allegation from later in her journal is one that actually ended up spinning off into a lawsuit, and we'll get into that after. She says, my mother has lost her fucking mind. Even though Ghislaine said it was best to take me home because Mr. Black is so important for some reason over my health, there is going to be hell to pay. I ruined their trip and am being dramatic when that fat fuck bit me. He threw me on the ground and got blood all over Jeffrey's carpet, and I'm the issue? Who the fuck bites someone? Sick. No one is that important, and Leon can go fuck himself. I hate New York. So she's alleging that Leon, the multi-billionaire CEO of Apollo Group, was a sadist who bit her and drew blood, to which she was punished. Jeffrey and Ghislaine had her sent home, and her mother, who was apparently away on a vacation at the time, was enraged at her for having ruined her good time. Again, this just shows you how these people were getting away with it. They were finding these girls from broken families and either stealing them away or bribing them away from their families. Now, as far as I can find, this girl is only identified as Jane Doe and is only involved in this one lawsuit, and it's against billionaire Leon Black. Now, one detail I left out up until now because I thought it might be too horrible to believe outright is that this girl is even more vulnerable than you may have thought. The woman, named only as Jane Doe, is now in her 30s and was born with mosaic Down syndrome, a rare condition which gave her some of the features of typical Down syndrome, but did not affect her physical appearance. At age 16, when the abuse allegedly took place, she had a mental age of 12, according to her lawyers. That explains why she turned to her journal to try to make sense of everything. It explains why her appearance was so captivating to Epstein. On the outside, she was this beautiful Aryan princess, but she may have still acted sweet and childlike on the inside. It's horrible. It's too horrible to want to believe, but there is zero reason not to believe it. It's right there in front of our faces. Now, I'd like to tell you that this lawsuit was successful, but That's not the case because we're ruled by monsters. The billionaire, Leon Black, has used everything in his arsenal to try and stop this brave woman from getting justice. Here's the headline from the New York Post, basically Nazi media at this point. Billionaire Leon Black claims family of quote-unquote autistic teen who accused him of R-word believes she's lying. Black's legal team, which has dismissed the claims as an attempt to smear his name with no basis in fact, claimed to have learned the identity of the woman, who Black claims he never met, and therefore claimed it had the right to investigate her story. The latest filing claims that the investigators for Black spoke with numerous witnesses, including close and extended family members, and they allege that Jane Doe does not, in fact, have autism or Down syndrome, but was instead diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Plaintiff Jane Doe became aware of and studied those behaviors and began intentionally displaying them in her 20s in order to present herself as a person with autism. The lawyers said that Jane Doe avoided eye contact once she noted that people with autism don't look at other people in the eye. She had never before displayed that behavior, the documents added. The classic she's a lying crazy woman tactic. No, they always try to discredit the victim, and that usually works, honestly, especially when you have family members who are saying, oh no, she is crazy. She doesn't have autism. She's got borderline personality disorder and just loves to make things up. Except there's one problem. Leon Black claims that she's lying because she only showed signs of autism in her 20s. Now, even if that was true, that doesn't mean that she wasn't autistic before she was diagnosed or showed signs of autism, and mosaic Down syndrome is notoriously not something that's diagnosed until later in life. Not only that, but in the files, there is a trauma journal seemingly from the same woman, this time from 2012, so maybe 8 years later when she would have been in her 20s. In it, she speaks about her fear of Ghislaine and Epstein, now that she understands what had happened to her. And alongside these entries are dozens of thank you notes and get well wishes from staff members and other patients who are leaving their contact information and wishing her well. One of the attendants at this clinic, who apparently was a favorite of Jane Doe, wrote this. Her name was Miss Aaron. She said, I want to thank you because I have truly learned so much from you, not only about autism, but also about really connecting with someone. So Miss Aaron is clearly under the impression that this girl has autism. And this clinic is some sort of medical facility. Surely they have some sort of understanding of what people with autism are and what people who are pretending to have autism look like. I mean, they must have some record of her having autism. This serves as some sort of record. And even if she didn't, even if she was lying about having autism, that doesn't disprove all of the information that she wrote down in her diary in 2004. But her lawsuit is a complete legal mess, with billionaire Leon Black being able to use his significant wealth to target not only Jane Doe, but the law firm that was representing her, sanctioning them twice and countersuing them to the point where the firm not only dropped Jane Doe and forced her to start representing herself, but also seemingly turned on her. It notes a letter that Jane Doe wrote to the judge, stating that in March 2024, 2 of her attorneys misled her into attending a hearing with a judge. She had thought that the hearing would be a brief meeting, but was instead an under oath evidentiary hearing for which she had not been prepared. This event was deeply distressing and left me confused and disoriented, she wrote to the judge. In July, the attorneys tracked her down in a hotel where she had been staying, she wrote, specifically to avoid her lawyers, and then pressured her into joining a Zoom call with the judge. I still don't understand the nature or purpose of that proceeding, she said. Now, in this surprise proceeding, the judge seemingly signaled that she too does not believe that this woman, Jane Doe, is telling the truth. District Court Judge Jessica Clark seemed to agree with Black's lawyers, arguing that the woman was not of sound mind, and that Wigdor, the lawyers for Jane Doe, had a duty to not bring a case that was without merit. Instead, Wigdor doubled down on the case by trying to amend it with an even more outrageous claim against Leon. Well, you hear that, guys? Judge Jessica Clark saw the same evidence that you and I did, the same diary that you and I just looked at, and said, nah, I'm going to believe the same family members that were vacationing while their daughter was stuck on Pedo Island. No, I'm going to believe the billionaire sex pest and his slimy lawyers who are doing everything in their power to bury this lawsuit. This woman must be a liar, despite all the evidence that there is clearly something very real happening. Plenty of leads to follow, plenty of names to ask around, plenty of ways to verify what she's saying. But nope, none of that. She's a liar. You and I are all idiots, and Epstein is the only client of this whole multi-billion-dollar operation. And that's why the DOJ isn't pressing any charges or finding any more co-conspirators. They looked at the unredacted versions of what you and I just looked at and said, nope, nothing here. This isn't suspicious at all. I mean, I'm sick of this, guys. Something has to give. I am tired of being told that I don't see and hear what I am clearly seeing and hearing. Believe women. Believe children. We have to stop this because enough is enough. Again, you're not likely to hear this story on the mainstream media, so be sure to subscribe to Really American. You may even be the 1 millionth sub. If this is affecting you guys as much as it's affecting me, please share this video, get this story out there. I'm Tony Hinderman, and I'll see you next time.